if you want a safe environment, if you want people to feel free to tell you the things you need to know, you can't shoot messengers. In fact, you've got to hug them and make them feel welcome so people see that behaviour and go, well, I also know this thing, I better say that as well. And that's just this art of creating a psychologically safe environment.
The question is, from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Ricky from Thinking Focus.
And I'm Paul from Thinking Focus.
The question is, what is psychological safety and why is it important?
The question is, from Thinking Focus. A podcast about how we sometimes get in our own way and what we can do about it.
And why do you want to know that? Every time we come... No. That's what psychological safety is. It's like, do you feel like you're in...
Not now.
No. Sorry about that. You are safe. I was just using it as an example. Psychological safety is a really interesting concept about how safe we feel in the workplace. And by how safe, I don't just mean like a health and safety, that the chair's not going to fall to bits or we're going to get hurt by the photocopier, or, you know, if you work somewhere fairly serious with dangerous stuff. What I mean is do I feel safe in amongst the people around me? Do I feel safe with my boss, with my boss's boss, with my peers, with my colleagues? Do I create a safe environment for the people who work for me to be able to say what they're thinking, to be able to share their fears,
right.
Without judgment, without embarrassment, without fear? Now, that doesn't mean without consequences. That doesn't mean that I'm safe to say whatever I want. So I can't come in and go, well, that cardigan is terrible, because that's not a particularly nice or safe thing to do. So there has to be consequences to it. But I could come in and go, you know that project we're working on? I don't think it's working very well, or I think we've got this problem over here. And you may fundamentally disagree with me, but it's important that I feel safe that I can say it.
Okay. So what we're really, or what you're saying is that we're comfortable in our own skin, we can say what's on our mind, but obviously that's with some consequence, some implication.
Yes.
But we feel confident enough to express how we're feeling. And actually, you framed some of that in questions, which I thought was really interesting, as opposed to, you know, this project isn't working, is a statement, but then was, so how could we move it forward? What's not happening? How might we move this forward?
Well, I think for me, psychological safety always kind of roots into that kind of, how do I understand what you understand and how you feel about something. And the ultimate route for me to understand you is questions, and for you to understand me is questions. Because if all I do is make statements, bland, generic
it doesn't help, does it?
Doesn't help. And so I think actually, part of psychological safety is everybody in a team taking really small moments to go, well, okay, you said that, but why are you saying that? And what's underneath that? And why do you feel this way? So one of the exercises we do with people, we talk about self-belief on anything they're doing, any goal, any project, any teamwork.
Okay.
And we always rate it on a 1 to 10 scale. So we go 1, not a hope in hell, 10, easy peasy, gonna happen. That's how I feel about it. And it seems really simple, but actually getting people to use that language of a 1 to 10 scale means really quickly leaders, managers, colleagues can go, how are you feeling about it right now in this moment with that new information, or what happened in that meeting yesterday? And somebody can go, I was a 7, I'm now a 4. That opens a debate. Why has it moved?
So I imagine that's quite a quick way of getting people, A, on the same page, i.e. we know you're not happy.
Yep.
And then we can start talking about it as opposed to dancing around the handbags, as it were.
Absolutely.
Around, how's Paul feeling about this? Well, why don't we give him a simple barometer in which to use? And I imagine that's the same with one of our other techniques where we talk about helpful or unhelpful thinking, that actually we can start to help them externalise some of the unhelpful thinking because they feel safe to do so.
Yes, and I think the last part of your statement there, because they feel safe to do so, is where psychological safety comes in.
Yeah.
Because I can walk in and go, Ricky, how do you feel about this project? As a big scary leader, and if you're looking at me going, well, I'm a 4, but I can't tell him I'm a 4, so I'm going to fake a smile and go 9. I'm not helping you, but you're not helping me.
No.
Because you're going to walk out the room going, it's not going to work. And I don't know it. I'm going to walk out the room going, everyone feels great.
And we've all been, I think, certainly I know I've been involved in projects where there's always the smart arse that turns up at the end and goes, I knew it wouldn't work. Well, if we'd have created an environment where they could, A, feel comfortable to be able to share that, and B, have some mechanisms like we've described in order to share, feel safe to do so, as opposed to the great hindsight view of the world that says, oh yeah, it wasn't going to work. That's no good to anybody. We'd like to know that at the beginning of the project so we can mitigate, overcome, or recalibrate the goal.
Yes, and I think that's a really interesting example, because the risk of me telling you after the event it wasn't going to work, for me personally, is fairly low, because the bad things happened, it hasn't worked.
Yes.
The risk of me telling you at the start of the project it's not going to work because of these things you don't know is quite high, because there's a shoot the messenger scenario there.
Absolutely.
So I was reading some material the other day, and the guy used a piece of language I absolutely loved about this, which is leaders need to learn to hug the messenger. So he's basically
I've not heard that before.
No, and I just thought it was a beautiful comment.
I'm going to keep my head down, by the way.
But his argument was that people are going to bring you bad news all the time. And if you want a safe environment, if you want people to feel free to tell you the things you need to know, you can't shoot messengers. In fact, you've got to hug them and make them feel welcome, so people see that behaviour and go, well, I also know this thing, I better say that as well. And that's just this art of creating a psychologically safe environment.
That's really important, actually, because being able to share what's on your mind in a way that means it's going to be valued, it's going to be, used in a so how do we fix that kind of way, as opposed to, well, you're just being negative, you're just telling us all the obstacles. Well, great, because now we have some ammunition on which to build and problems to solve, and use some tools around getting around those. But none of that happens if I don't feel safe enough to do that. Yes.
So I always thought, when people talk to me about, what is the ultimate psychologically safe environment, and this is just something I think in my head. I don't think it's a destination. I think it's a journey. I know we as a team, we've talked about this quite a lot, that we got to what we thought was a psychologically safe place and then quickly moved past it. And it's very easy to get to a place where you're going, well, I know this person's having a bad day, or this is going on in their life, or they've got a load of work on at the moment, so I just won't say this thing right now. I'll just let this one pass. And then it's another, and then it's another. And then before you know it, you've kind of moved past the zone of psychological safety into, I called it the friendship zone, and everybody understands what I mean by that. We're just friends now. But you're out of that zone, and it takes a step back into that. How can I have this constructive, open conversation in a safe way? And what we know from research is that teams that get into that zone and stay in that zone tend to outperform everybody else, because they have open, honest conversations. They correct mistakes quickly. They're open to trying things because they allow mistakes to happen. They're just much more dynamic and fluid in the way they work together. But it's a difficult place to stay, particularly when a leader comes along and then starts throwing around blame or accusations or shooting messengers, all those kind of fairly normal emotional reactions you have when things get tough.
But I guess there are some risks around not having a psychological safe environment, being that there's always likely to be one person who feels differently about something. If we don't encourage them to express, you're in danger of having groupthink. So you're going along, all merrily thinking you want that person, that individual, to challenge the status quo, to be disruptive in a helpful kind of way, to go, are we kidding ourselves here? Is this real? And if we don't have a safe environment, that will never happen. And you get 3 months in. I was with a client last week. They'd been in a project 3 months before they'd even realised they hadn't even got a goal.
Yeah.
And they wasted all this time and effort because somebody didn't stop them and go, I think we should be doing something different than what we think we're doing. They didn't feel confident to be able to step out and go.
And yet probably there was somebody in that team who knew that.
Yes.
And
they said we knew it.
Yeah.
But they didn't feel safe enough.
Yeah.
Because a senior guy with a big ego wanted to go on a particular journey.
Yes. And that's always, I find, really sad when you get to these projects where, when you're picking it apart, it kind of everybody knew it. So it wasn't even the senior guy. It was just a cultural thing.
And the environment would not allow them to express themselves.
Exactly. So we all knew this was wrong, and we all knew it wasn't going to work, and no one felt safe enough to say anything. It's kind of a little bit of an Emperor's New Clothes scenario. We all knew he was naked, but no one was going to say anything.
That's beyond psychological
So,
safety.
yeah, that was a vision you probably didn't need.
Yes, no, thank you.
But you get what I mean. It's like, if you can create that safe environment, that conversation would have happened 3 months before. Therefore, they would have addressed that. Yeah, okay, it would have been difficult. It would have been painful. Sometimes it's emotionally a bit raw. Getting that kind of feedback, particularly when you're totally committed to your idea or your project and you think it's a great idea, it's tough. It really stings. It hurts. No one likes it. But guess what? Getting it 3 months ago would mean you're 3 months further forward. And that's why psychologically safe teams always outperform, because they are prepared to handle that feedback early. It's a lot easier to get it early than to get it late and to find out you spent a year working on something that everybody knew wasn't going to work. But also it means you can adjust in real time. But it's a tough place to be. It's not an easy thing.
So if there were, say, 3 things as leaders we could do to help to create a psychologically safe environment, what 3 things, what tips would you give us in order to start building this environment?
3 is a tough one to get down because this is a complex thing to do. But I think if I got it down to 3, I would say this. 1, be curious. When people are saying stuff, when people aren't saying stuff, the question as a leader you need to be asking is why. Why are you being told that? Why are you not being told that?
What are they saying? What are they not saying?
Yeah.
Is as important.
So I think be curious.
Okay.
The second one is be open to feedback. In fact, encourage it. And the key thing for me about feedback is sometimes you have to go out of your way to create permission to feedback. I love the idea that actually when you ask people for feedback the first time, ignore it. Because they don't have permission. So the first time they're being polite. So just take the first bit and go, thanks for that, put it to one side. Now, what I'd really like is your feedback.
Yeah. Now tell me what you really think.
Yeah, because the first time we ask for feedback, you're going to get what they think you want to hear.
But I imagine as a leader, showing a little bit of humility, admitting perhaps maybe some vulnerability.
And that's really interesting, because that was my third thing, which was be vulnerable, which is actually, and I don't mean, if you're the finance director, don't walk in and go, I just don't get numbers. That's not vulnerability. That's a bit crazy. But actually, people want to understand that you've made some mistakes too, so it's okay for them to make some mistakes. So be vulnerable, be open and honest and real about who you are as a human being. Because leaders, we want to follow people and work for people who are people we can aspire to be. And if you present yourself as perfect, if you present yourself as somebody who's never got anything wrong, actually I can't be that, because I know inside me, and everybody feels this way, that I've got things wrong. So we judge ourselves quite harshly. We look at other people and go, oh, we like that. And some leaders that I've met just really struggle with showing a little bit of vulnerability and a little bit of humility in the workplace. They want to be kind of quasi-gods. And actually, they're really hard people to follow, and they don't create safe spaces because I can't be perfect. So actually...
But they don't create psychological safety either.
No, they don't, because what they're doing to the people around them is going, unless you're perfect, you're not good enough. And therefore, actually, if I'm not... Why would I walk through your door as a leader and go, hey, I just come in to let you know I'm not good enough? Why would I say that to you? I'm never going to say that to you. Whereas actually, if you're the kind of leader who's made some mistakes, and I know that I can sit in your office and go, look, I've got this wrong, and help me put it right, that's not on me anymore. That's just the way it is. I'm not diminishing for myself to have that conversation. But if you're perfect and you've never made a mistake in your life, why am I going to come in and debase myself with I've screwed up the monthly report, or I got the figures wrong, or I told you that sale was going to happen, but actually the client's buying it off somebody else. So I'm not going to tell you, at which point I've diminished your ability to lead and manage because you don't have the data or information anymore.
So what we're really saying then, psychological safety, actually, we're not sure you can run an effective business without creating a level of psychological safety where people feel like they can express.
Not if you want to have people in your business, no.
But fundamentally, 3 easy steps they're not easy to do necessarily, but 3 steps to consider in terms of working towards creating psychological safety is about curiosity.
Yep.
Be curious. Understand what's being said, what's not being said.
Yep.
And certainly, more importantly, what's not being said.
And when people say stuff to you, why are they saying it? What does it mean?
What's beneath that?
Yeah, not just what is it in terms of the data or the facts, but why are they telling you now? What's the emotion and the feelings around all that?
Okay. Second step in that is about feedback. Get lots of feedback, lots and lots of feedback, and embrace that and use that as an opportunity to understand, to test the temperature, to learn, to reflect in terms of, am I creating an environment where they're telling me what's really on their mind as opposed to what I want to hear?
Yes, and understand that feedback stings, feedback hurts. That's okay, that's perfectly normal. Don't take that out on the person giving you the feedback.
No. And the final bit is about show some vulnerability.
Yeah. Be human.
So be human, recognise that no matter how perfect you think you are likely to have made some mistakes, and being humble around that. And most importantly, what you learned and changed as a result of that is going to help them to follow you and do the right things, and therefore create this environment where I feel like this person's listening to me, they understand me, and they understand that I'm going to make some mistakes just like they did.
Yes.
And therefore, between us, we can grow from this.
Exactly, that's it. Those 3 things come together in a way that means that the conversation, the communication between the people working together is much more fluid and open, and bad news gets shared quickly, and we can fix it and we can move forward together.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll finish there then. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Next time on The Question Is.
How do we do that interpretation where we help people understand what our values and our purpose means for them and what they're trying to do and where we're trying to go? And very often in my experience, particularly around purpose, particularly around why does this organisation exist, is very much left to chance. You either get it or you don't. And if you don't, well, no one's going to explain it to you.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organisation, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.